Good afternoon, Star Wars movie fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. My name is Mike, and this video is all about what you need to know going into the Last Jedi movie, as well as some of my predictions for this movie. So, before we get started, I really hope that you've at least watched Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, because I'm not going to be explaining those two movies, and I think it's really important that you've watched at least, minimum, these two movies before seeing The Last Jedi. So, if you haven't put that on your list, you should watch those movies, and then you should watch this video, because I'm going to get into a little bit of the details that you may not know from Star Wars Rebels, from some of the books, and different things that have been giving us hints as to what we might see in The Last Jedi. So, the first place we're going to start is when we last saw Luke Skywalker really doing anything. Now, I know we saw him at the end of The Force Awakens, but basically it was Rey handing Luke the lightsaber. So really, the last time we saw Luke doing anything was in Return of the Jedi. And let's be honest, Luke was tapping into some of the dark side of the Force in this movie. And if you say no, he wasn't, well, I argue with you because I think he was tapping into the anger, which is part of the dark side. But you know what? Here, let's watch this clip and I'll show you what I mean. So you can't tell me, after watching that when Luke's hammering his lightsaber on Darth Vader and cuts off his arm, that he's not a little bit angry. So that is not the only thing, though. We also see in Return of the Jedi, at the beginning of the movie, Luke is choking out the Gamoran guards in Jabba's palace. So choking people, that is definitely something that we never saw the Jedi do in the prequels. It's something that we only saw the Sith doing, and basically Darth Vader. So to say that Luke wasn't tapping into a little bit of the dark side and the light side, I think we have to really embrace that going into The Last Jedi, because I think Luke, when he says in the trailer, the Jedi must end, he's not talking about, the good and that he won't train Rey. I think what he's saying is the way that the Jedi did the training was wrong. So we'll get back to that in a little bit, but let's talk about in the prequels. So in the prequels, they set us up for the end of the Republic and the birth of the Empire. So let's watch this clip.
The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
So in this clip from the prequels, we see that Emperor Palpatine takes over the Senate, becomes the Emperor, and is the birth of the Galactic Empire. So what we get into now is the book Bloodline by Claudia Gray. So there's going to be spoilers, so please, if you haven't read the book Bloodline, I doubt you were planning to by now, but I'm going to be talking about some spoilers in the book Bloodline. So in the book Bloodline, what we find out is this is all happening about 6 years before The Last Jedi. So we know Luke in this book is still training Ben Solo. So he hasn't gone to Ahch-To yet in his exile. So the longest that he could have been on exile in Ahch-To was 6 years. Because it could have happened right after this book. The other thing that we find out is that there is a new republic forming, and we see that General Leia, or just Princess Leia at the time, is running to be the first senator. Now, she gets, she basically gets outed, and they find out that Darth Vader is her father, And Ben Solo doesn't know this at the time. So Ben Solo is very upset that Leia never told him the truth about his grandfather being Darth Vader. So this lends itself to why probably a 23-year-old Ben Solo in this book breaks away from Luke and betrays him because he lied to him too. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. And so he betrays him too. So this can all talk about why Ben Solo left Luke's Jedi Academy. What it also tells you is that Luke is in a very dark place because of losing Ben Solo to the dark side. Leia is outed and basically forms the resistance because of this, because she's completely hated now in the New Republic. So she takes a few of her trusted advisor and forms the resistance, because out of all of this happening, the First Order has been building in the background in very much secret, and the person who gets elected as the leader of the New Republic opens up the First Order, but while doing so actually creates her own demise, which then comes in because the First Order, as we see in The Force Awakens, blows up Hosnian Prime, which is where the New Republic is. So I wish they would have delved a little more into that in The Force Awakens, but I'm sure they will in The Last Jedi. But you see that scene where Starkiller Base shoots out the 5 beams and destroys those planets. Well, that's Hosnian Prime, and that's where the New Republic is located. So basically, going into The Last Jedi, there is no New Republic. The First Order is completely and fully in control. So now we have the beginning of the Resistance under General Leia. And so we're going to probably see a lot of what happens in the Resistance. And I think we're going to see a focus of Leia trying to train Poe Dameron to become the next leader of the Resistance. Or if the Resistance wins over the First Order, possibly the leader of the New Republic again. So we don't know how that's going to play out. And then we've been noticing in Star Wars Rebels, they've been doing a lot about the one in the middle. So we talk about the Bendu. And if you haven't been watching Rebels, again, that's why I'm explaining this. What happens is Kanan gets blinded in Star Wars Rebels, and Kanan is the main Jedi in Star Wars Rebels, and he's taken on Ezra's apprentice. But he gets blinded by Darth Maul, and so he goes looking for answers. He's down, he's in a dark place, and on their base, Chopper Base, he goes out and he hears a voice from the Force, and it turns out it's this giant creature, the Bendu, and the Bendu talks to him and says, "I'm not light or dark, I'm the one in the middle." And I think that's Dave Filoni and the story writers, Pablo Hidalgo, the story group at Lucasfilm, trying to set us up for what a gray Jedi or in the middle means. And I think that's where we're going to find Luke, is Luke has discovered through his research and searching out Jedi temples, and we see in the trailer he's got what we think might be the wills, which are teachings and scripture, I guess, of the Jedi. And maybe he's finding out that, you know what, the way that the Jedi trained people back in the old day wasn't right. Now, in order to understand where Luke's coming from, he's not like any other Jedi that's ever been, because he didn't start his training until he was 19 years old when Ben Kenobi found him, or when he found Ben, and then he's training on the Millennium Falcon. And so what a lot of people don't remember is that in between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, there are 2 years in there. So that was 2 years after Obi-Wan Kenobi has been killed and becomes a Force ghost. Well, that doesn't mean that Luke wasn't training for those 2 years. Maybe a Force ghost Obi-Wan was helping Luke learn about the Force. And that's why at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, we see Luke reach his hand out and pull the lightsaber up to save himself from the snow beast. But also, when he goes to train with Yoda, he's training with Yoda, but he probably has been doing some studying and looking for different things and trying to figure out the Force. So then, when he's on Dagobah with Yoda and doing some real hard training, that's probably not the beginning of his training. So he's done some training. Then, when he's on Dagobah, we figure that it's probably 6 weeks that he's there training. But Dagobah has it's a very force-sensitive planet, and we find that out back in the Clone Wars animated series. If you watch that, you'll see where Yoda goes and visits Dagobah. So he knows that this is a very force-sensitive planet. So that means Luke was tapping into the Force in Dagobah and able to really accelerate his training quite quickly. Now we know that he left Dagobah too soon. Yoda didn't want him to leave yet because incomplete was his training. But again, Luke is a different Jedi. So when Luke went back and started his own Jedi Academy, who knows how he started training those young apprentices that he had, Ben Solo included. We know some of those other pupils probably became the Knights of Ren. We don't know how he was training them. Was he training them the old Jedi way, or was he training them the new way? So that's something I think we're also going to find out in The Last Jedi. Now, before I get into my predictions for this movie, and there's going to be a few of them, and you guys probably won't agree with them, I just also want to say that The Last Jedi is for sure going to be a very different Star Wars movie than we have ever seen. Rian Johnson is not a normal director. Rian Johnson had built this story. Rian Johnson also gave notes to Claudia Gray for the book Bloodlines because he wanted some things in that book to reflect what's going to happen in The Last Jedi. So that was a very big collaboration. So that's why I've talked about things in Bloodlines, because probably those big plot story points in Bloodlines are definitely going to be in The Last Jedi. So let's talk about my predictions. So let's start with who are Rey's parents. I'm hoping that it's Ben Kenobi or Palpatine, but I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be someone we've never known, and I don't think it's going to be essential to the plot of the story. I think it's just going to help Rey knowing who her parents were. They're probably going to be unknowns that we've never heard of before. Will Luke or Rey go dark? I say no on both. I do not think Luke or Rey will go dark. Is Finn Force sensitive? Again, I do not think Finn is Force sensitive. I think that he was trained from a very young age by the First Order on how to fight, how to become a stormtrooper, and that's why he was so adept with the lightsaber, fighting, melee combat hand to hand. So no, I don't think Finn is Force sensitive. Will Luke die and become a Force ghost in Episode 8 so that he's a Force ghost in Episode 9? Yes, I think Luke is going to die in this movie. Again, I don't know for sure any of this. This is just my speculation. But I think it would further the story if Luke dies, because then we can focus on all of just the new characters for Episode 9, which is what I want. So will Princess Leia die? Yes, I think she will also die. I don't think she was supposed to die. I think Leia was supposed to go on and be in Episode 9. We know that from what Colin Trevorrow had said, and Lucasfilm Kathleen Kennedy had said, that Leia had a huge part in Episode 9. But because of the untimely passing of Carrie Fisher, I think that they're going to have her die in this movie a very noble death. And send it off in the right direction. That is my prediction. And finally, will Kylo Ren die in this story? No, I do not think so. I think Kylo Ren is going to live and go on to Episode 9 to have a final confrontation with Rey, whether that is Rey dying or Kylo sacrificing himself and turning redemption in Episode 9. But I don't think Kylo Ren will die in Episode 9. But it doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments section below. All those predictions. Who are Rey's parents? Will Luke or Rey go dark? Is Finn Force sensitive? Will Luke die and become a Force ghost? Will Leia die? And will Kylo Ren die? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it will help you enjoy The Last Jedi just a little bit more. If you want, you can send me an email. My email address is movieguySci-fi@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter @movieguySci-fi. I'd also really appreciate it if you could share this video with your friends that are asking all these questions about Star Wars, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot, everybody, and remember, nerds rule the world.